Liz and the Bluebird is mediocre. I don't say this because I was inherently disappointed, but more because I felt it should have been far more than what it was. My goal, however, is not really to discuss its shortcomings in a way that makes it sound like I'm trying to belittle the film in any way. Actually, I feel almost as if there are a lot of people who really resonated with this film's core theme, its characters, and its animation. Just by browsing around the internet for a while, I found a lot of deep-rooted appreciation for what Kyoto Animation did, and that's what's most important. So this isn't really a full-blown review of Liz and the Bluebird, but my take on it as a whole. If you're here looking for a simple review and recommendation of the film, it goes as follows. Liz and the Bluebird follows the story of two high school girls, Nozomi and Mizore, in the last moments of high school. Amidst the anxiety surrounding college and their future, their friendship is tested. The film is very much about the lives of these two girls and those around them, but not much more. It succeeds to some degree in its discussion surrounding love and friendship, as well as animation, but falls short in aspects like actual plot, pacing, and dialogue. It is by no means a film you should pass up on if this sounds like something you'd enjoy, or if you're a fan of KyoAni's work. If it doesn't sound like you, then you have no reason to watch it for anything but the always stellar animation KyoAni puts out, and a great soundtrack. Or just skip it. I think the biggest thing Liz and the Bluebird does right is its theme. The core theme of the movie is friendship. In this particular case, it focuses on the difficulties friendship can present. Two stories run in parallel throughout the film, tied together by a musical piece. Liz and the Bluebird is a fictional children's story that, for some reason, has a musical accompaniment that Nozomi and Mizore's high school band is playing. The story itself concerns Liz, who one day finds herself to be living with a girl with blue hair. She comes to the realization that this is actually a bluebird transformed into a human. As the days go by, Liz notices the bird sneaking out to enjoy the pleasures of being a bird, and because she is both a good friend and loves the bird very much, she has to sever any ties. Liz lets the titular bluebird go because she slowly comes to the realization that while the bird does enjoy the time she spends with Liz, there's a better place for her elsewhere. The reality portion of the story takes place in the same high school as Hibike Euphonium. Nozomi and Mizore enjoy a rather tenuous friendship, marked primarily by Mizore's one-sided struggle of romantic love for Nozomi, while Nozomi treats Mizore more like something to deal with rather than a real friend. Their friendship fails to withstand the general stress and anxiety brought upon high schoolers by college and their futures. They begin to silently feud, with each of them feeling as though the other is, in some way, being unfair. The emotional peak of the movie and realization of how complicated friendship can be comes to fruition in a single scene. Nozomi confronts Mizore and thinks that Mizore has been holding back in her playing, and states that she actually didn't want to go to music school, only claiming she wanted to out of jealousy. Mizore goes straight into a confession, showing the most emotion she ever does in the entire movie. Nozomi, however, doesn't accept her confession because doing so would continue to negatively impact Mizore. The two stories running in parallel really does accentuate Mizore and Nozomi's relationship, with Nozomi having to let Mizore go, so to speak, as the biggest correlation. They have an in-movie conversation about how each of them thought they were represented well by a character in Liz and the Bluebird. Nozomi feels as though she was the Bluebird and Mizore feels like Liz, but they find out the opposite. Mizore realizes she is the Bluebird because she has to let go of Nozomi, specifically her attachment and her love, so she can move on with her life and make her own path. While Nozomi has to learn to let the Bluebird go because despite their friendship and how much Nozomi may care about her friend, it is better for both of them if they are able to go their separate ways after high school. Unfortunately, that is the furthest the movie really takes it. The paramount revelation the girls have is that they may drift apart when they depart for college. There are other ideas explored, but none of them really get looked at any closer than purely surface level. Mizore, an oboe player, has the other double reed instrument players try almost desperately to befriend her. Perhaps the movie tried to address how new friendships could be born, but the only one of them that does any speaking is in maybe 3 total scenes the entire movie. Nozomi is shown with the flutes, who appear to be very social and comfortable with each other. I guess this was their attempt at a standard friendship circle, perhaps even trying to convey what superficial friends could look like, but even that seems like a stretch. The idea isn't explored very well. The supporting characters function more as plot devices to push Mizore and Nozomi along and eventually talk to each other, but they fail to do any more than that. This carries on to other aspects of the movie. There's a lot of what I feel like is just dead air, scenes where people are just sitting there pondering. I don't think this is a bad thing necessarily, but I feel as though it slowed down the pace of the movie significantly. There is importance in those scenes as they almost always contain a character in thought or reflecting on something, but upon a rewatch I almost felt inclined to just watch the entire movie at 2 times speed. the dialogue that does exist is sometimes flat and uncharismatic. There are times where this is intentional. Again, the flutes discussions were definitely far from deep, but other times I feel it isn't intentional, unless, perhaps, they are making a comment on the vapid nature of high school conversation, in which case, nice. Been through that, and I have to agree with the notion. Back to the good things that exist, I can't gush enough over the soundtrack. There are some truly beautiful pieces that accompany some of even the most dull moments in the film. Really, the soundtrack gives the movie the life it needs. I often found myself going back through scenes just to hear what was playing in the background. I ended up lost in the music that played during any of the Liz and the Bluebird sequences. Which brings me to the animation. While I did find the real-world animation pretty and effective, it didn't feel as though it was KyoAni's best. Not to say that I think their work has a look to it. I think most of their stuff is easily differentiable and distinct. I appreciate some of the subtle stuff they did, especially with hair. Gosh, did you see Kumiko's hair in this? I love it. But I think it was overall not the best I've seen. The real show stealer was the vibrant and brilliant world of Liz. It was stunningly animated, and I wish that there was an entire movie that had some of whatever that was. If they animate a full-length feature film with that, I'm in. They can have all the money from me that they want. So what did I think overall? I really love the aspects of it that played more of a supporting role than I did the two main characters. There are plenty of high school stories that have resonated with me in the past, and I'm sure even as I grow older that I'll find more that do. But that doesn't mean every single one has to. This one I didn't find particularly important to me. I think the movie is fine overall. I would still watch it again if it happened to be on, but I think I'd be more likely to revisit the soundtrack than the movie itself.